Hi everyone, and welcome to IELTS Time. Today we're looking at this cue card. Describe a website or app you have used to buy or sell second-hand or recycled items. You should say what the website or app is, what kind of items it offers, how you used it, and explain why you found it useful. As usual, let's get started with Finn.
So the first one that comes to mind is Facebook Marketplace, which I've used quite a bit to buy secondhand stuff. As a university student, I don't exactly have a huge budget, so I often look for used items rather than buying everything brand new. You can find all sorts of things on there: furniture, electronics, clothes, bikes, and even old textbooks. But personally, I mainly use it to look for furniture and small electronics. For example, last year I really needed a desk for my room, so I had a look on Marketplace. I found a secondhand wooden desk that looked almost new, and the seller was asking for less than half of what I'd have paid in a furniture shop. I dropped them a quick message to check its condition and dimensions, and after a bit of back and forth on the price, we agreed on a price. I went to collect it a couple of days later, and luckily they lived fairly close to my uni, so getting it back to my place was really easy. I find the platform so useful mainly because it saves me quite a lot of cash, which, as a student, is obviously a massive bonus. I also like that you can see clear photos of what you're actually getting, ask the seller questions directly, and usually negotiate a bit. On top of that, buying secondhand just feels like a much more sustainable option, since you're giving something a second life instead of buying a brand new product. So, I wouldn't say I'm on Facebook Marketplace every day, but whenever I'm looking for something relatively expensive, it's pretty much the first place I check.
So that was Finn's response. Let's break it down using the 4 points on the cue card. Finn says that the first platform that comes to mind is Facebook Marketplace, and he explains that he's used it quite a bit to buy used items. So, right from the beginning, we know exactly which platform he's talking about and what he normally uses it for. For the second point, what kind of items it offers, Finn first gives us a general idea of what's available. He mentions furniture, electronics, clothes, bikes, and even old textbooks. He then makes the answer more personal by saying that he mainly uses Marketplace for furniture and small electronics. This gives him a natural way to move from the general description of the platform to his own experience. For how he used it, Finn focuses on one particular purchase, a desk for his room. He explains that as a university student, he doesn't have a huge budget, so buying used items is often a better option for him. He found a second-hand wooden desk that looked almost new and was being sold for less than half the price of a similar desk in a furniture shop. He then explains what he actually did on the app. He sent the seller a message to ask about the desk's condition and dimensions, and after some back and forth about the price, they agreed on a price. A couple of days later, he went to collect the desk. He also adds that the seller lived fairly close to his university, which made getting the desk back to his place easy. Finally, for why he found it useful, Finn gives several reasons. The main one is that it saves him money, which is particularly important to him as a student. He also likes being able to see clear photos of an item, communicate directly with the seller, and negotiate the price. He then adds an environmental reason. In his view, buying used items is more sustainable because you're giving something a second life, rather than buying a completely new product. Now let's hear Blondie's story.
Oh, definitely eBay. I've had the app on my phone for years, and it's still my go-to whenever I want to get rid of things I don't use anymore or find something specific for my apartment. You can find pretty much everything on there, but I personally tend to use it for workwear and home items. For example, I had a bit of a clear out of my closet a couple of months ago and found a few blazers and pairs of tailored trousers that I used to wear to the office, but just don't really suit my style anymore. So I took some quick photos on my phone, put them up as fixed price listings, and then just shipped them off when they sold. On the other hand, I recently used eBay to find a mid-century desk lamp for my home office. I wanted something a bit different, but I didn't really want to spend a fortune on a brand new one from a high-end shop. So I set up a search alert, waited for a few options to come up, and eventually bid on one that was in really good condition. I ended up getting it for a fraction of what a similar lamp would have cost new. I think what I like most about eBay is just how convenient it is. After a long day at work, I don't really want to spend my evening going around shops. So being able to sit on the sofa and look for something on my phone is ideal. And obviously, making a bit of extra money from things I don't use anymore is a nice bonus. I also like the fact that I'm giving good quality things a second life instead of just throwing them away. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm constantly buying things on eBay, but whenever I'm looking for something specific or having a clear out, it's usually one of the first places I check.
And now let's break down Blondie's response in the same way. For the first point, what the website or app is, Blondie chooses eBay. She says she's had the app on her phone for years and uses it for two main purposes: getting rid of things she no longer needs and finding specific things for her apartment. For the second point, what kind of items it offers, she says that you can find pretty much everything on eBay, but she personally tends to use it for workwear and home items. She then gives us some specific examples, including blazers, tailored trousers and a desk lamp. For how she used the app, Blondie actually gives us two examples. First, she talks about selling clothes. She had a clear out of her closet and found some blazers and tailored trousers that she used to wear to the office but no longer wanted because they didn't really fit her current style. She took some quick photos, created fixed price listings, and shipped the clothes when they sold. Then she gives us an example of using eBay to buy something. She wanted a mid-century desk lamp for her home office. She didn't want to pay a lot for a new one from a high-end shop, so she set up a search alert and waited for suitable options to appear. Eventually, she found one in really good condition, bid on it, and managed to buy it for a fraction of the price of a similar new lamp. For the final point, why she found eBay useful, Blondie mainly focuses on convenience. She explains that after a long day at work, she doesn't really want to spend her evening going around shops. Being able to sit at home and search for something specific on her phone makes the process much easier. She also mentions the financial benefits. When she sells things she no longer uses, she can make a bit of extra money. And when she buys second-hand, she can often get good quality products for much less than she would pay for new ones. Finally, she mentions the environmental benefit. Rather than throwing away good quality things, she likes the idea of giving them a second life. So, like Finn's answer, Blondie's response covers all 4 points, but she develops the third point, how she used the app, through two contrasting examples. One where she sells items, and another where she buys one. Now let's take a closer look at some useful vocabulary and expressions from both answers. Here are 4 useful expressions from the answers for talking about buying and selling things online. First, a go-to is something you regularly choose or rely on when you need something. In Blondie's answer, eBay is her go-to when she wants to buy or sell something. You could also say, Facebook Marketplace is my go-to when I'm looking for cheap furniture. Next, have a clear out means going through your belongings and getting rid of things you no longer want or need. Blondie uses this when she talks about clearing out her closet. For example, I had a clear out of my closet and found a lot of clothes I never wore. Then we have back and forth, which describes repeated communication between people, often while they're trying to reach an agreement. Finn uses it when he talks about negotiating with the seller. You could say, after a bit of back and forth, we finally agreed on a price. And finally, a fixed price listing is a listing where the seller sets a specific price rather than asking buyers to bid. Blondie uses this when describing how she sold her old work clothes. For example, I put the jacket up as a fixed price listing and it sold a few days later. Now let's look at 3 expressions that are useful when you're describing the process of finding and buying something. To set up a search alert means to arrange for an app to notify you when something you're looking for becomes available. That's exactly what Blondie did when she was looking for her desk lamp. You could say, I set up a search alert for a second-hand camera and waited for a good one to come up. If you're describing a used item that's still in very good shape, you can say it's in really good condition. For example, the laptop was used, but it was still in really good condition. And if you paid much less than the original price, you can say you got it for a fraction of the price. Blondie uses this expression to describe what she paid for her desk lamp. For example, I got it for a fraction of the price of a new one. Finally, here are 2 expressions from the answers that are particularly useful when you're explaining the benefits of buying and selling used items. A nice bonus means an additional benefit that isn't necessarily the main reason for doing something. In Blondie's answer, making some extra money from things she no longer uses is a nice bonus. You could say, getting free delivery was a nice bonus. And give something a second life means continuing to use something rather than throwing it away. Both Finn and Blondie use this idea when talking about the environmental side of buying and selling used items. For example, buying used furniture is a good way to give old items a second life. And that's it for today's lesson. Use the ideas and expressions that fit your own experience and keep your answers specific and personal. If you'd like more lessons like this, you can join our membership for extra lessons and speaking topics. Thanks for tuning in.